the other thing is DeepSeek a game changer for AI? Did you see this?
I did see this.
What did you think?
About
just it in general. Did you
about
believe
DeepSeek or about this
just
post?
DeepSeek, the $5 million thing, the whole it's weird. So weirdly, it showed up like on the New York Times. It showed up everywhere on Monday, Sunday evening. It was like all over Bloomberg, and I just thought that was really fascinating. It was like a well coordinated thing. So maybe there's something else going on behind the scenes that attributed to that, but it almost felt like. I told one of the guys here, I was like, it almost felt like somebody was trying to call the top of the whole AI boom. They're like, hey, that's enough. This is the top right here, and so they're trying to lower expectations.
It's like calling the top for Bitcoin. You're only going to get wrecked.
So I don't know. That it was maybe there's more to going on behind the scenes, but it was just kind of weird how all that flowed in Sunday evening, Monday night. I think it had over like 1 million downloads in the App Store. Almost immediately. It all happened at once, which is strange to me sometimes. But go ahead, Kian. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, that potato is twice baked, ain't it?
It's always.
But I mean, I think from what I was paying a little more attention to what the research community thought of it.
Oh,
and,
cool. Yeah, give us that.
And what people, and rather than like the conspiracies around why it was released, why it was open source.
That's not a conspiracy. That's just looking at the data and talking about it.
Well, no, but I mean, I'm not saying I'm not. Conspiracies are real. I'm not saying they aren't. I just wasn't thinking about them. I didn't mean to disparage your twice baked potato. Your Mr. Potato Head. But there was some speculation that because they're a hedge fund and they released it because it tanked to the NVIDIA stock price because it demonstrated that you didn't need so many GPUs to produce a reasoning model, which prior to this, I think the most comparable models were at least 10 times as expensive. People are trying to deconstruct why it was so cheap. I think some are suggesting that they're hiding some of the training costs and the fact that they used earlier models.
I think it's a communistic attack on Bitcoin. I was going to say Bitcoin. I think it's a communistic attack.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry.
This is a loaded.
I couldn't help myself.
Potato.
It was just like communism. It's the line.
I thought it was some of the more interesting things to me. One of the most interesting things to me about this was that quants produced the model, and it was just like sort of a side project. Suggests to me that maybe because we've been for like 20 years, people have been talking about the brain drain of Wall Street.
What is that right there? What does that mean?
It's a football car. They're talking about how China threw a football to the United States, and they're like,
across
"Come
the ocean,
play the Super Bowl with me."
Oh, the Super Bowl's coming up.
Yeah, China Bowl.
What is that? What is he explaining here? Does anybody know?
So I watched this video. Yeah. So what he's trying to explain is basically the difference in size that you need to go from like how big does your data set need to be in order to train a model that's like competent to compare to ChatGPT, like what ChatGPT has. And so like there was hopefully I can explain this without butchering it, but like previously there was a lot of problems with scaling the training for these models to where you couldn't really use synthetic data or data that's generated off of other data. So like you just had to have real data. And so like the arms race between all these different AI companies is how big of a data set can we collect so that we can use this massive data set to train the model. And so what he's showing is that, okay, what a lot of these larger companies were doing was they were amassing this massive data set, the 670 billion parameters, that's what he put down on the paper.
Oh, wow.
Because it all had to be authentic data. Like you couldn't inflate this data. You couldn't generate this data. It all had to be authentic data. And so it kind of priced out anybody being able to train their own models because you need to not only have access to this data, but then be able to build the infrastructure to train on this data. Because the larger the data set is, the more hardware you need to train on it. And so what he's demonstrating is that what DeepSeek does is that it found a novel way to actually create that synthetic data off of real data. So you could start with a smaller data set, inflate that to a larger data set. Or I don't even think you even need to do that. Like they found a...
Use reinforcement learning.
Yeah, you can use reinforcement learning, but you can use it using this thing called chain of thought, which is kind of like the unlock with DeepSeek, is like using this chain of thought in order to help like the AI model so that it doesn't get stuck on the smaller data set, that it's able to actually, you can inflate that data set to a larger one and it's able to learn off of that. I think that's like my half-assed explanation.
No, that's great. That's what the Stacker's up for.
Yeah. Basically, they made it. They found some ways to make training these models more cost efficient, and that's awesome. And I think it's pretty great. What I was going to say is, I think what's cool to me is that the quants are switching over to AI now, because they're like some of the smartest people that we have in the world, and they've been working in Wall Street, which is probably not very like societally positive on the whole. And we're going to get them to produce AI, which will be pretty cool.
Pied Piper.
I stopped watching that in like the second season. I found it kind of offensive.
Yeah, I am looking forward to like this trickling down to like the Llama C++ and the other like small projects where you can run your own model and train your own model.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really looking forward to that, because I've always wanted to kind of have my own model, but you know,
I think it'll definitely happen. I just think something I said in a comment here is like the limit of all this technology is basically a human. Like how much energy does it take to train a human brain? How much matter is required to sustain a human brain? So you can expect at least your AI computer, your AGI computer that you want, the model that you want to run, as being, a very small device about the size of a human brain, at least, probably smaller.
Well, I mean, I was talking to Ted this week. He was telling me that he's running his own like AI model and for his thing that he's creating. So I think there was a comment here. I don't know who he was quoting, but he said Jevons paradox.
I forget what.
I don't remember what that means.
Oh.
He said, good observation. DeepSeek is easier to run on home PC, which may create demand for self-hosting, consequently, NVIDIA hardware.
Oh, Jevons paradox is like you make something more efficient and then people begin consuming it more, not less. So like the idea is, but NVIDIA had a huge stock sell-off. I think it was like the biggest stock sell-off ever in history, because it's also like one of the highest stock prices ever. But he's like, but see Jevons paradox, where this efficiency gain isn't going to reduce the demand for NVIDIA GPUs. It's going to increase it, because all it's going to lead to is more people creating AI models.
That's a great observation. Cool.
The coolest thing to me with this was that like, so chain of thought was, I think, an optimization that OpenAI was doing with their models.
Yeah, they're O1.
But they never disclosed any of these optimizations that they were doing. So opposite of being OpenAI. But the team that was working on DeepSeek, they were able to figure out this chain of thought process. But what I thought was really cool was, and this is, I think this is kind of speculation, but on OpenAI side, when they were like training with chain of thought, because I think they sort of acknowledged that this is also like they were doing chain of thought. Like DeepSeek actually published like the concept of chain of thought, and OpenAI was actually using this internally. But like OpenAI was using chain of thought in their training data. So they were basically, with these training sets, you have a question and you have an answer, and then you have some sort of reward function, or not reward function, but like it's a cost function. It's like a punishment. And you want the AI to get the answer right. But what they were doing is they were implementing this like thought process in between. It's like, okay, it's not just here's a question, here's the answer. It's like, here's a question, here's a list of steps that you should follow to try and work out the answer, and then here's the answer. And so that's something I think OpenAI was doing. The problem with that is that increases the size of your training data, because now it's not only just question and answer, but now there's all these intermediary steps that the AI has to run through. And so that costs more money because that's more computation that the AI has to go through. It's also a larger data set that you need. And so what the DeepSeek team figured out is that you actually don't need to include that chain of thought in the training data. You can sort of do it in a way where that chain of thought just emerges within the AI. And so the AI goes through this chain of thought process to be able to break down like the steps to answering a question before it attempts to answer the question. And it'll do that internally without you explicitly like declaring like this is the chain of thought that you need to come up with. And so that's part of the unlock with DeepSeek, is that you can still do like the question and answer format, but you get this performance benefit of having that intermediary chain of thought step. And it's just like an emergent behavior in the AI. It's not something that you have to explicitly provide in the training data. And there's like and when I say emergent, like it is based upon a formula that they're using when they're running these models and doing the training and the inference. And so there's a bunch of different papers that are released about this, but there's one paper in particular called DeepSeek Math, where they go over the math behind this. And I would just encourage people to read that, because there's actually like really cool stuff in there that I think is worth looking into. So yeah, that, and then like there's also like this, I don't even know how to reference it, but somebody's passing around this, GitHub gists.
Yeah.
It's like the single file where somebody implemented like the entire DeepSeek algorithm in like one file.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's surprisingly elegant. Like it's not as big as you think. And so I just think it's a really cool, not only is it an optimization, but it's an optimization that ended up turning out to be beautiful in a way. And it's like things like that I really enjoy. So
nice.